Okay, I think people are starting to slow down, so we should be able to get going. Benjamin, are you there? Great. All right. All
Yeah,
right.
thank you.
Welcome to the South Florida Poetry Journal reading series. This is our April reading. I'm so happy to have the two poets we have here today. And I'll be introducing you to them in a moment. I also want to introduce Michael McNamara. He is the editor and publisher of SoFloPoJo and the SoFloPoJo Press. And we're happy to have all of you here. And a special welcome to the students from Palm Beach State College. We're happy to have you as well. We do ask that everyone stay on mute if you're not speaking, and um, you can keep your cameras on or off, but please stay on mute. So I'm going to introduce our first poet, Benjamin Schmitt, and then David Breskin will read after Benjamin. Benjamin Schmitt is the Elgin Award-nominated author of 5 books, the most recent one being Satan's School for Girls and Other Works, which is a irresistible title. His writing has appeared in Sojourners, Antioch Review, The MacGuffin, Sensitive Skin, Hobart, Columbia Review, The Seattle Times, and elsewhere. He's a co-founder of Pacifica Writers Workshop, lives in Seattle with his children. And while he's reading, I'll be putting his website into the chat as well as a couple of places where you can buy his books. And at this point, I'm going to just hand it over to you, Benjamin, and let you read for us. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Judy, for having me. Can you hear me okay? Is this a good volume?
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent. And hopefully my kids won't barge in while I'm reading. I think they're entertained out there. But I'm going to read some poems from the new book, Satan's School for Girls and Other Works. It's mostly poetry, but there are some other genres in it as well. But I'm going to start with a poem and meander my way through, and we'll see what happens. This first poem is called Taco Bob and the Sour Creams. Bob started off playing Black Sabbath covers on a nylon stringed Spanish guitar as his taco truck developed the odor of no customers, which metastasized into the stench of imminent closure. One day, cool Jackie McKay, saxophonist for the Sunday night show band, stopped by. Biting into his mediocre pork taco, he heard jet streams plucked from an acoustic guitar and wildflower-strewn hillsides stretching out from a voice. "Excuse me, was that you singing?" Taco Bob was annoyed at the interruption. "Yeah? Listen, it sounded great. Here's my card. If you ever want to play together, look me up." A few months later, the taco truck was a steel shell packed with melted dreams and crisp darkness sold to a corn dog vendor. "Blasphemy," Bob shook his head, as one last drop of salsa receded into the darkness. He looked up Jackie McKay the very next week, and soon enough they formed a band, with McKay on sax, Thunderingly on drums, Lester Podowitz on bass, Alan Greer on keyboards, and Taco Bob on vocals and guitar. The first practice felt like a sneeze setting a tissue on fire, and they all knew this was something special. "But why are all the songs about tacos?" Lester Podowitz asked. Bob shrugged. "Tacos are my first love." And so Taco Bob and the Sour Creams recorded their LP, the hottest sauce in history, and shocked the world with a hit single, Hiding in a Soft Shell, in which jazz was seduced by funk, who in turn was cheating on punk rock, all of them infatuated with heavy metal. The band toured the US and Europe singing, "Hiding in a soft shell, we're hiding, oh, oh, we're hiding, oh, oh." When they returned to the studio a year later, Lester Podowitz announced he had written a song that was not about tacos, but did have 4 bass solos for him to show off his chops. Cool Jackie McKay complained about his share of royalties. Thundering Lee was struggling with a heroin addiction he had picked up from a stripper in Texas. Alan Greer wanted the band to sound more pop. More importantly, every musician seemed empty of their flavors, and one day Bob never showed up at the studio. The record company searched everywhere, but to no avail. In fact, no one has seen him since. A few months back, I did hear about a taco truck in Tucson, though. It is said that if you make a request at a certain time of the night, and if he is in the right mood, the owner will take out a guitar and sing, "We're hiding, oh, oh," to the entertainment of the diners. Supposedly, he's pretty good. And this next poem is called, thank you. This next poem is called Self-Portrait as Action Figure, which I was recently made aware of that it's actually an AI trend, but this poem was written Years before the AI trend, so I think I'm owed a little bit of money for this, but I probably won't get it. This is called Self-Portrait as Action Figure. Detachable glasses clip right onto the nose. The hair comes in shaggy or Roman senator. Powerful black eyebrows shoot off the face's blades if you push a button on the back of the neck. The beard is a rough plastic, painted brown and red and blonde and gray. Flexible legs bend high for fighting kicks, with thick boots for the rocks of the mountains and the needles of the streets. The round belly is covered by a t-shirt that changes color in warm water. Hands are grooved with scars. Hands grooved with scars are nimble enough to carry accessories. Accessories include a book, a journal, a pen, a cigarette, a lighter, a wine glass, a record, a water bottle, a taco, a phone, a coffee mug, and a bouquet of roses. In addition, it has two jackets, hoodie, and denim. You'll find more accessories in the Seattle home. Books, entertainment centers, bed, pillows, blankets, full kitchen set, multiple computers, reclining chair, additional action figure family members, and more. There's also the family SUV, with child car seats and the mystery trunk, containing old sports equipment, lawn chairs, and a new surprise with every opening. Seattle home and family SUV sold separately. Available wherever the moon tickles the bellies of the beaches, whether it's waxing or waning, and a solitary soul asks if clues to the unanswerable questions are sold. And this next one is called Days of the Week. Thank you. Everybody hates Monday. He has such a bad reputation. Just because his car broke down a few times on the way to school. Because he wears such dorky clothes, khakis with a t-shirt tucked in. Because he lives in a trailer park. Because he's always the first student to raise. Monday is pretty cool. Nobody else can throw a football or a party like that. He can shotgun a beer in 5 seconds. A great lad to skip class with, always showing you a new game on his phone. But how many times has he bailed on you? Left you at a concert with no ride home? Promised to introduce you to that girl in chemistry class, only to introduce her to someone else? Likewise with his girlfriend Saturday. I mean, she's attractive, who can deny that? Those full red mornings to kiss, long pink afternoons of hair, and brown evenings to gaze and gaze. She's good company sometimes, never met a funnier lady. But she ditched me at the movies twice and took the last blueberry scone at the bakery as I was standing in line. Thursday has always been jealous of her. Always wanted that body. Wanted Friday for herself. And you really want to root for Thursday when she comes in second after trying so hard. She completes every task perfectly, only to watch it perfectly fall apart. This has made her bitter. The cynical observations and sarcastic comments can be hard to stomach as she spreads her gossip on the bus. Wednesday doesn't have time for any of that. He's a good man, solid, there for you in a pinch. He works hard on the football team, but Friday still gets all of the glory. Many people don't know that Wednesday volunteers at a soup kitchen and an animal shelter. All the puppies wag their tails as he walks by. The only problem is, and I really shouldn't say this, he's kind of dumb. I mean, he has a good heart and he can drive a stick shift, but he's not exactly going to talk your ear off about Camus and existentialism. His friend Tuesday is bright, though, very politically engaged, up on all the major issues, reminding everyone to vote. She volunteers at the soup kitchen too, trying to organize the homeless into a cooperative. She has a couple followers, but no one else pays her any mind. Maybe it's because she doesn't understand their fantasies of personal wealth. This is not true of her nemesis Sunday, heir to a vast fortune. He only hangs with Friday and Saturday and won't be seen with anyone else. Don't tell Sunday this, but they only like his money. He can be quite insufferable at times. His snobby arrogance is annoying, but the priggishness of his religious stance is what really turns people off. If you can get Sunday to drink a couple beers, he's actually not so bad. He'll mostly talk about golf or tennis or whatever else is on. He may even be nice to Monday, who gets a bad rap, all things considered. When he wears a holiday on his head or around his neck, he's just as good as Saturday or Sunday or anyone. When you show him love, he's never shy in reciprocating. Yes, Monday has stepped in a puddle and splashed mud all over my new yellow shirt, and okay, he messed up my order back when he worked at the coffee shop. But in the buzzing, chainsaw blade of minutes, give me Monday, raw, with everything to prove. Ready to begin, a brand new ending. This is called Barcelona Sunrise. I have no desire for purity, but there have been a few short moments of my life when I gazed upon beauty, so magnificent that my skin was lost in a galaxy so distant from myself that I knew it must be perfection. One night in Barcelona, I awoke in the dark, feeling drawn to the Mediterranean. The city had committed some crime, leaving oily fingerprints all over her streets, and I made my way through the distorted grimace of 5 a.m. I saw drunks past drunkenness, thieves past deceit. I saw a man violently holding a woman down, and believe it or not, I had the presence of mind to whistle to the nearby polizia. In fact, I saw something like a carcass on every cobblestone, and by the time I'd had enough, I'd made it too far to turn back. Desperate for coffee, I stopped at a 24-hour market. I tried speaking Spanish, but my eyes must have been reddened by American cartoons because the clerk asked me what I wanted in English. I guzzled a nice coffee drink and scarfed down a banana on a bench outside. I knew I was safe there because the nearby dock was filled with yachts, and nothing keeps out the corruption of the poor like the corruption of the rich. Finishing my makeshift breakfast, I continued on my journey. Because of the docks, I knew I was close. The wax of my legs was melting on a short wick of burning pain, but sure enough, the streets of the city soon ended, and I climbed a short rise. Spread out below me was a beach and the sea just beyond. A few scoured onlookers had gathered. A red fingernail was dipping into the sky. I found a solitary spot and sat down to watch. Then the pale hand of a princess slid those red fingernails back and forth along the horizon, leaving her orange peels while she enjoyed the fruit. I waited there for quite a while, but I didn't mind because the gulls were crying the tales of Odysseus, and peace would come down now and then to shatter me into a kind of liberated wreckage. By now, a single cloud had slithered its way to the horizon, its underbelly lit up with pink virtues, as the surfers began their morning rides, and soon we all saw the sun, arriving like a birth or a grateful hand reaching, too small for minutes, too big for centuries, moving up beyond the confines of time, shaking off its droplets in the cool air. And this next poem might be a total fail because I've only read this in public once before. It's called Interview with a Poem. So I'm gonna have to play two characters in this. And so if it sucks, just forget about it. And so I'll be a poem and the person interviewing the poem, basically. The following interview appeared in the Omaha Sentinel in June 2021. The interviewer is Jason Ramesh, and the poem's name is A Late Sunset on Hood Mountain. It's not every day that you get to interview a poem. So tell me, what does a typical day look like for you? Each day, ink spreads her cherished tentacles across my heart, but I never know if what I experience is life as it is, life as it should be, or just a series of delusional black marks scratched out by an author of unsound mind. So it sounds like you actually had or have a life apart from the poet. Do you remember anything from before you were written down? What was it like? Ah, youth! The cloud that disappears once you see it on the horizon. Ah, youth! Footprints in darkness that once found only lead to more darkness. Ah, youth! Whoa! That's quite enough anaphora, pal. What do you think this is? A zine? The Omaha Sentinel is a family paper. Let's just move on. The poet's name is Fritz Carlyle. How did he first discover you? I was running my hands gently along the orange hue of sky dusk, dancing to cricket speak, when flashes of marijuana smoke buzzed by with cacophonic vibrations. I looked down an outcrop of Mount Hood. The poet was there, smoking a joint. Wait, so he was high when he wrote you? Like how high? Jazz musician high or Joe Rogan high? He dressed me in robes of peace and laid a diadem upon my head, gilded with love. He promised me galaxies in his ink, but I have yet to see them. How long did it take for him to write you? It must have gotten dark pretty quick on the mountain with the sun going down. He is a novice, and so our grand romance was over in a matter of minutes. Sticky ink covered his fingers and me, with only 8 lines to show for myself. Well, he must have taken you out for a few revisions, right? I know you've been published recently. Yes, but gliding upon ice sheets, my eyes fixed on the ripening moon. I always thought I'd end up in the New Yorker, not the Vampire Alien 666 review. Well, that's life, I guess. One final question. Is it better to be written or unwritten? The human mind mostly contains puddles of rank water, but every now and then one will electrocute you. And this is called, thank you. This is called self-care. I practice self-care. I lie down until my voice can stand up on his own 2 feet. I walk around naked until my own flesh becomes a garment. I eat until melted cheese becomes a weight loss strategy, coughing at the mere hint of a vegetable. I spend evenings in mansions until the rich begin to think of a broke poet as just another relation, like a mediocre great uncle or a third-rate first cousin. I enjoy the warmth of a shower until the steam forms a staircase to a different shower, and a different shower after that. Drifting through clouds, I scrub my beard with glee. I call in sick to work until I stop existing, which makes it difficult to order at a restaurant, but I find traveling cheaper as an empty void. I indulge in a pharmaceutical elysium until the murderous hallucination and I become bowling buddies. He slowly drives me insane by criticizing my stroke. I practice self-care on lawns and porches, in the streets, and 100 miles offshore, in a crowd, and when no one is around, when I'm dreaming awake, in that tight grip of yours loosening. And I'm a big fan of odes, and the book has a few odes in it. I'm just going to read one. This is called Ode on Forgiveness. Yesterday, my kids were playing outside. One was trying to sneak delicacies of dirt into a blackened mouth. One had climbed a tree, proclaiming a new empire from the branches. I stood up, startled to see my neighbor approaching, her black hair sweeping across her face, forming an illegible script. I need to apologize, she said. It was about a year ago when my kids wandered into her yard, throwing rocks and ripping out the grass. They were chased back here by her and her cuddly, yelping dog. I was reading at the time and she really laid into us all. In fact, the rage poured tongues out of her body. They plopped on the ground, licking and cursing the earth. But yesterday she was vulnerable, the gravity of remorse pulling her skyward. I screamed at your kids. I said a lot of things I shouldn't have. I forgave her right there, telling her as much. Even though she looked disdainfully at my offered hand, we shook on the matter. And I think everyone has moved on. The incident caused me to ponder, though. Now I'm wondering what to do about the family member whom I haven't forgiven and the friend whom I forgave, but still resent. And I dare not forget about all the things I must ask forgiveness for. When I do, I pray I may have just a little of that courage my neighbor had as she walked barefoot across the broken glass of her own hostility, carrying the cracked lantern of humility honestly towards the dark recesses of a face. Thank you. And last year, my wife died from cancer. The book was completed before that, but there are some poems in it that discuss her diagnosis and treatment. This is one of those. This is called Traffic Light Meditations. After my wife informed me of her cancer diagnosis, I wasn't exactly having a great day. And when Under the Bridge by the Red Hot Chili Peppers came on the radio, my throat tossed out a strand of song, hoping the right note would grab it and pull. It didn't. Once those high notes hit, I was left on that ox cart of limitations barreling into my heart, the same one that crashed into piles of basketballs when I was a kid. The oxen fled, goods were scattered, and awakening in my car again, I came to a stoplight a few blocks later. An elderly man was crossing the road. In truth, maybe not much older than me. As I watched him, I thought of all the landscapes that had seen his body, all the foods that had tasted him, almost done with him now. Crouching in a gray jacket, he reached the sidewalk, and it felt unfair that such a rich catalog of pain and loveliness should pass by my car without speaking a word, without looking in my eyes to say, I know it's hard and things seem meaningless, but one day. He just kept walking up his hill, one more sparking wire attached to a machine we couldn't fix if we tried to. The traffic light turned green. I met a friend for a beer. And this next poem is references the 1988 presidential election between Michael Dukakis, the Democrat, and George H.W. Bush, the Republican. Just reminding people that I'm getting older now, so some folks might not remember. It's called The Baby Killers. He was one of those 7-year-olds who pulled his pants and underwear down to his ankles at the urinal. I don't remember why, but he asked who my parents were voting for as we peed next to each other. This was 1988. I said Dukakis. His face changed, losing all its freckled leaves from one October gust. He said, Your Parents are baby killers! And he waddled away, pulling his pants and underwear up as he went. I was left alone in that Lutheran school bathroom with thoughts of blood, dad, mist, vampires, axes, rats, clowns, brains, cribs, graves, sneers, knives, Jesus, rats, dark mom, entrails, fangs. Troubling my first grade mind. I was haunted all day. In the cafeteria, the lasagna was a burnt and blackened car left in the bramble, seats soaked in blood. The gymnasium was a cold mausoleum of hanged sinners. The classroom was serial killer's basement filled with myriad devices of pain as I contemplated my evil parents' murderous deeds. At home that night, I was obviously even more terrified. Would I find little baby parts? Maybe a tiny toe between the cushions of the sofa? I couldn't look my parents in the eye and left the dinner table abruptly to go to bed. We lived in a farmhouse then, long shadows, sheep bleats, chicken clucks. I tried desperately to fall asleep in this ordinary place where no one would ever find my body. I think I have some more time, so I'm going to read a few more things and then I'll finish up here. As I mentioned, the book is mostly poetry, but it contains some other sections as well. There's one section called Jobs, where each piece describes a different occupation and that many people wouldn't necessarily want. And each one is kind of a mix of flash fiction and prose poetry. I don't really know what to call them, so I just call them flashy poems. I'm going to read Job number 11. It might also have some relevance to current events. Tomas had worked in the Mayfield's deli for 8 months, slicing meats and cheeses, making sandwiches for customers. He worked 40 hours a week there and helped at his uncle's restaurant during evenings and weekends. With such a busy schedule, you might assume he had no time for love, but you'd be wrong. He had fallen for Mabel, a checker on the day shift. Whenever he saw her, his heart would sink to the bottom of a mysterious ocean, filled with all the mysteries of life, where he felt like it might burst from deep sea pressure. They had only spoken periodically. She mostly talked about fashion videos he had never seen, and he would try to follow along until their glances brushed against each other, spilling confused smiles all over the conversation. But Tomas was shy, and he knew that in 4 months his visa would expire. Whenever he contemplated the possibility of returning to Nicaragua, a police baton smashed the pleading hands of his childhood. So he came to accept all manner of things, including the sexual advances of his twice divorced 52-year-old boss Jackie. Thus, it did not come as too much of a surprise when Jackie, knowing his situation, called him into her office one day, caressed his muscular 22-year-old shoulders, and proposed marriage. And what was he supposed to do? Weeks later, the two of them were married in a judge's office where traffic citations and certificates of eternal union rained down from the high heavens, collecting in piles and batches on the desks. They honeymooned in Vegas. Jackie drank apple martinis and played the slots, while Tomas wandered the neon streets at night, entranced not so much by the luxury, but by a cruel brightness slapping the rows of palm trees. When they returned to work, Tomas discovered that his nervousness around Mabel was gone, and he wasn't the first man to hope for love in adultery. I'm going to finish up with a couple of sections from the title poem, Satan's School for Girls. It's a narrative horror poem about an all-girl heavy metal band that fights a demon. And so I'm gonna start with section 2 and then I'll jump ahead a little bit. This is their first band practice. They were all drunk or high at the first practice, definitely nervous. Guitar awkwardly shoving drums, bass banging its head against the walls. Lizzie threw down the mic, collapsing into a giggling heap on the floor. Slowly, they all drifted back to the abstract normality of TV. The president was talking about sex and apologizing, and no one could take their eyes off the screen. Their fingers crushed under the weight of unfulfilled ambitions. They couldn't play, and a few of them were relieved. When Juliana woke up, Harriet was playing the drums, just a basic beat snare on the 4 count, then the kick drum slam. Juliana picked up her bass. Notes scattered like birds as her fingers opened windows and the groove rushed in. It was a jam to get lost in, a grassy plateau stretching into fuzzy, distorted mist. Around 3 a.m., the sound woke Sherry. She yelled, "Shut the fuck up!" But they didn't, and only half awake, she plugged in her guitar to smash her dreams. Alice's guitar entered quickly thereafter, but it was a while before Lizzie sang, "You really blow me. You must be some kind of man." After writing 4 more songs, they got a gig at a cowboy bar in another town. The audience hated everything but their cover of Layla. Yet each face they looked out upon was a drop of wine dripping upwards, floating off into pure teenage exhilaration. And I'm going to finish up with this is section 9 from the title poem. It's a few months later. They've moved into a house and practice space, but they're beginning to notice that there's something not quite right about it, so they have a band meeting. It was Halloween night when the band sat down to hear Harriet's story at the Roxy Jones Club a few hours before they were scheduled to play. So this guy, Pegleg Krauss, his real name was Wilhelm Krauss. He was a Nazi doctor at a concentration camp, probably murdered thousands. He disappeared after World War II. No one knew where he went. But then in the 60s, the Israeli army tracked him down, found his cabin in the Amazon. There was a shootout. He escaped, but he was shot in the leg. He ended up lost in the jungle and the wound got infected. As a doctor, he knew he would lose the leg. Somehow he performed the surgery himself. He cut through flesh and bone to remove the gangrenous limb. But he needed to keep walking, so he carved up a tree branch for a prosthetic. That's how he got his name. He found his way out and eventually came to the US. As a disguise and to earn money, he dressed up as a clown for children's parties. No one knew who he was until he died, and the hospital traced his dental records. Our house was his last known address. And our neighbor told you all this, Sherry asked. Harriet nodded. On stage that night, they played a new song, and the audience danced in the electricity of a lightning spear skewering a wild boar in the ruins of an Irish castle. Afterwards, they went back to the house with some friends. A few minutes before midnight, the power went off. As they struggled to find candles in the darkness, a voice chanted, Sammy the Serpent from Cincinnati lost his house and went a bit batty. Sammy the Serpent from Cincinnati killed his brother and his wife Mattie. Sammy the Serpent from Cincinnati, skin pale as mold, eyes small and ratty. Then Jay lit his Bic lighter, and Alice screamed. In the mirror, the bloody faces of women and children seemed drawn to the flame. Thank you.
Thank you
I'll
so
go ahead and
much,
mute myself,
Benjamin.
I guess.
That was so
Yeah,
much
thank you.
fun. Lots of fun. And some very important content, some serious content, but really done so well that it was just great to listen to.
Thank you so much, Judy.
You're welcome.